Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So spoiler season keeps creeping in. Get it? Because the back of Hostile, the name is creeping in. Hilarious, right? Okay, not funny. Anyways, if you haven't seen my episode on Hostile, make sure you check that one out because you can literally beat your opponents with a house, and who doesn't want that? And if you thought that name was weird for a card, make sure you check out the episode on Old Stick Fingers, which is a name, and it's also an incredibly broken commander. And speaking of broken, just this morning we got yet another one, though this one actually I titled Busted, because it kind of gets, it's gonna get old if I just keep calling things broken, even though they're both very, very broken, but I put Busted for this one, okay? Regardless, yeah, Lier Disciple of the Drown is an incredibly powerful commander, so if you haven't seen that episode yet, make sure you check it out. But don't leave just yet, because Vadrik would be very upset if you left, and Vadrik would probably cry a little bit, so please don't leave for Vadrik's sake, okay? And with this brand new commander, I think a lot of players out there are really going to enjoy it, and it's gonna be really good. So with all that said, let's jump into it. So, Vadrik, Astral Archmage, is a 1/2 human wizard that costs 1 blue-red. He has, if it's neither day nor night, it becomes day as Vadrik, Astral Archmage enters the battlefield. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is Vadrik's power. And whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, put a ++1 counter on Vadrik. So let's first quickly break down the day-night part about this card. Now, if you haven't seen my episode about this mechanic, make sure you go check that out because I go into further detail on it and how it exactly works. Basically, you need to start tracking between night and day, and depending on if a certain number of spells or no spells was cast on the turn prior, it's going to change from day to night or night to day. So throughout the game, just by having Vadrik in play, again, you're going to be tracking day and night, and occasionally you're going to get a counter on it. Now that's just some nice free additional value, Vadrik just growing throughout the game. Especially because of that part that, says, instant and sorcery spells you cast cost X less to cast where X is Vadrik's power. Now, I am really happy with the way that they actually made this in the way that they worded it. It very easily could have said, instant and sorcery spells you cast cost X less to cast where X is the number of counters on Vadrik. And that would not have been anywhere near as effective. Because we're counting Vadrik's power, we're not just counting on those counters, we can pump that power in other ways. And because of that, we can do some really incredible things with this commander and have a really big explosive turn that, well, it can get out of hand. I mean, Mystics of the Ismagnus, look out. This commander's got a ton of potential, and I'm going to show you what cards can work very well with it and what kind of an explosive turn you can expect from it. So that said, let's jump into these cards that can make this commander absolutely incredible. First up, typically you're not going to see a card like Blackblade Reforged in a deck that's, not a Voltron deck. But again, because our commander cares about its power, equipping this onto it can be huge. Blackblade Reforged is going to give equipped creature +1/+1 for each land we control. So again, by equipping this to our commander, throughout the game just by putting lands into play, we are reducing the cost of all of our instants and sorceries. I mean, say we get this down on turn 2 and play our commander on turn 3. Even not counting any counters that we get with our commander from that day-night shift, if we attach this to our commander on turn 4, well, that's gonna be a big turn. Because with 4 lands in play, our commander is gonna get +4/+4 and be a 5/6. And again, that doesn't count any counters, and likely we would have gotten some by now. So now all of our instants and sorceries cost 5 less to cast, again, and this is just turn 4 without any ramp prior. But things, of course, can get even more ridiculous than that. Because next up, let's talk about a card like Rush of Blood, which is an instant for 2 and a red, which again is basically just going to cost a red in this deck, and it says target creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn where X is its power. This, as well as effects like Unleash Fury, are basically massive cost reducers for a turn. So again, say that our commander has 5 power, and then we cast this, now all of a sudden he's got 10 power, and all of our spells are reduced by 10. Or again, I should say, instants and sorceries, but again, we're going to be running pretty much mostly instants and sorceries in this deck. And then, of course, we've got X spells. Like Enrage, the new Lunar Frenzy, and Blazing Shoal. Enrage says target creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn, and again, that X is going to be reduced by our commander's power. And then Lunar Frenzy is going to give target creature we control +X/+0 First Strike and Trample. So yeah, I guess if you really want to take an opponent out with this commander and commander damage, you definitely can. And then Blazing Shoal is also going to give target creature +X/+0 until end of turn, but we can actually cast this for free. We can remove a red card with converted mana cost X in our hand from the game rather than paying this cost. Now that is a good option to have, but again with our commander reducing that X, we probably just want to cast this. And again, without putting any extra mana into that X, we essentially just double up our commander's power again. So once we get our commander's power to an absurd amount, what do we cast next? Well, how about a mass draw spell like Stroke of Genius, Blue Sun Zenith, and Finale of Revelation? Stroke of Genius is going to make target player draw X cards, and yeah, we're going to be targeting ourselves, I guess unless we want to mill an opponent, which is definitely an option as well. But yeah, essentially with this, for just a singular blue mana, we can draw an amount of cards equal to our commander's power -2. And again, if our commander has 20 power or so, well, that's going to be 18 cards, and we'll take that, thank you. And then Blue Sun Zenith is actually a mass draw spell that we can draw back into. It makes target player draw X cards, then we shuffle it into its owner's library. So again, yeah, most definitely an option to finish off our opponents with, since we can cast this multiple times in a game. And then how about Finale of Revelation? It says draw X cards if X is 10 or more, which it's basically always going to be in this deck. Instead, shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, untap up to 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Exile Finale of Revelation. So yeah, a ton of things are going on there, but basically, we get no maximum hand size, we shuffle our graveyard back into our library, and yeah, we get to untap 5 lands on top of drawing all those cards. So with this commander, this is basically a mass draw spell that nets us mana and gives us no maximum hand size and keeps our graveyard back in our library. It's absurd. It's so absurd I'm tripping over my words and misspeaking. My apologies. Regardless, of course, we're also going to be running other cards that can help net us mana with things like Frantic Search, Turnabout, and Brass's Bounty. Frantic Search is going to have us draw 2, discard 2, then untap up to 3 lands. So again, this can essentially just net us mana because we only have to pay 1 mana for it, and we get to untap 3 lands. And then Turnabout just straight up says, untap all your lands. So for 2 mana, we can keep the turn going by untapping all of our lands and continuing to have a lot of fun. Now, of course, keep in mind that Dramatic Reversal can help untap all of our non-land permanents as well, so if you've got Mana Rocks in play, great. But one other card that I want to highlight is Brass's Bounty. It says for each land you control, create a treasure token. So yeah, that's pretty incredible for what's just going to be a red mana. So with that mana, we can continue on our merry way, drawing more cards, pumping our commanders even higher, basically doubling it every single time, and then, maybe finishing up the game with something like Explosion, Comet Storm, or Jai's Immolating Inferno. Expansion's going to deal X damage to any target, and target player draws X cards. So we can finish off an opponent while drawing a ton of cards as well. And then Comet Storm has multi-kicker 1, choose any target, then choose another target for each time the spell is kicked. Comet Storm deals X damage to each of them. So kick it twice and kick your opponents right in the face. Or actually, okay, don't physically kick your opponents in the face, metaphorically kick them in the face with Comet Storm. Or with Jai's Immolating Inferno, which is going to deal X damage to each of up to 3 targets. And again, you've got 3 opponents, so good luck to them. And of course, outside of X spells like these, we can also utilize some massive mana spells. For example, Apex of Power says, exile the top 7 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among them. If this spell is cast from your hand, add 10 mana of any one color. So this gives us access to 10 cards off the top of your library and 10 free mana of one color. And normally this spell would cost 10 mana itself, but again with this commander and enough power, it's just going to cost us red, so 3 mana in total. We net 7 for casting this. And of course, if you just want to draw your entire deck, you can cast Enter the Infinite for basically 4 mana. It says draw cards equal to the number of cards in your library, then put a card from your hand on top of your library. You have no maximum hand size until your next turn. And of course, there are plenty of ways to win when you've got your entire deck in your hand and this commander in play. Or if you think you need more time, why not take an extra turn or 2 with something like Time Stretch, which usually costs 10 mana but now costs 2. And another card that you might want to consider if you're running a lot of high converted mana cost spells like these is Surge to Victory. It says, exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Creatures you control get +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that card's mana value. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player this turn, copy the exiled card. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So for just 2 mana, again with that cost reduction, exile a massive spell from your graveyard, pump your commander by its mana value, and then if you really feel like, swinging out and getting some damage through in some way, sure, you can copy it. Might not be necessary, but might be a lot of fun. But now that we've talked about cards that work really well with this commander, let's talk about some commanders that might want this one in the 99 of their decks. First up, and I actually referred to this one earlier in the episode, but Mizzix definitely might be able to use this card in the 99. Mizzix has, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost greater than the number of experience counters you have, you get an experience counter. And instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each experience counter you have. So cast more spells with higher converted mana costs, get more cost reduction. And if cost reduction is the name of the game again, Vadrik can help with that. Even again, just by it sitting on the table, there's going to be some shifts from day to night and night to day, so it'll grow on its own and reduce the cost more. So next up there's Melek Izzet Paragon, which could also utilize this card. Melek lets you cast instant sorceries off the top of your library, and whenever you do so, you copy it and choose new targets for the copy. So cost reduction can most definitely help this commander, and you can cast more and more spells and have a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, how about Zafai Thunder Conductor? Zafai has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, scry 1. And if that spell's mana value is 5 or greater, create a 4/4 elemental. If that spell's mana value is 10 or greater, Zafai is going to deal 10 damage to an opponent chosen at random. So cost reduction can definitely help you get up to that 10 mana cost. And if you happen to give Zafai Infect, well, your opponents are gone. Next up, how about Kess Dissident Mage? Kess says during each of your turns you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. If a card cast this way be put in your graveyard, exile it instead. So yeah, Kess likes casting spells and recasting them, so reducing their cost can most definitely help. But next up, how about Riku of 2 Reflections, who loves copying spells? It has, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay blue-red. If you do copy that spell, you may choose some targets for the copy. And by reducing their cost, it makes it a lot easier to copy more spells. Finally, how about Niv Mizzet Perrin? Whenever you draw a card, Niv is going to ping something for 1, and whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. So the more spells you cast, the more cards you draw, the more things you ping. But now as this episode is wrapping up, it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Vadrik Astral Archmage. I definitely appreciate the design of this commander. Again, just by saying Vadrik's power instead of +1/+1 counters, it can be built in a lot of different ways and be a lot more effective. And again, there are some pretty incredible things that you can do with this. So if I'm playing against Vadrik, I'm definitely going to be on the lookout if its power gets, well, any kind of power. It's going to go off really quickly. So yeah, if you're planning on building around this commander, have fun doubling its power, then doubling it again, and then drawing your deck, and then winning. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you, so make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.